Well, good morning. It's good to be back with you here at Christ's Table. My name is Kevin Young, and I have the privilege of being lead clergy here. If you'd like to know more about Christ's Table, you can find out everything that you need to know about us by visiting that URL that is right up there, www.christstable.today. And if you'd like to know more about this study in particular, go.christstable.today/thebook. There you'll find a reading list of all of the readings in this 28-day study, of which we are one day away from being at the end of it. You can see the archive wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, all of those we are on, and you can get the archive there. But at that URL, you can also get a study guide that will walk you through every single one of the days of this study, give you some helps and tools to do that, absolutely free. But if you'd like a printed copy of that, you can get one of those there as well. With our thanks for helping fund this Bible study, which we are only able to do through your support, but we also appreciate you, whether or not you are able to financially contribute. Now, one of the other things that we want to do in this study is make sure that we are focusing on the book. And by the book, we mean the Bible. And what we're doing is we've been taking this journey of 7 weeks in order to look into some of these genres, some of the different sections of the Bible, so we can understand how they're different. You can't read every part of the Bible the same way. You can't read a math book like you read a science book, like you read a poetry book, like you read a history book. The Bible has all of those kinds of things and more in it. And so it's helpful for us to know kind of how to come at each and every one of those. And what we're doing here in the very last week of the study is we are looking into the New Testament, which is the second part of the Bible. And we're looking specifically kind of at some images. And we've been looking at the truth and talking about the truth and some images of the truth, or some images that help us understand truth from untruth. And we find ourselves today in 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Now, I have to tell you that even though we call this 2 Peter, there is a lot of question as to whether or not Peter is the actual one who wrote 2 Peter. But we'll just kind of continue to use Peter simply because traditionally that is the understanding of who wrote 2 Peter. Now, whenever we come to this part of 2 Peter, there's going to be a laser-like focus on a very specific frame of looking at truth. And here we go, verse 1. But there were also false prophets in Israel, just as there will be false prophets among you. They will cleverly teach destructive heresies and even deny the master who bought them. And this way, they will bring sudden destruction on themselves. And you can kind of see right here out of the gate that Peter is giving us this frame to look at truth that is very important. And that is with a critical eye as to who is telling you or teaching you truth. Peter points out that in your past, there have been some false prophets that you were aware of, but now, even in this new thing, there are going to be false teachers among you. And one of the things that is fascinating to me, oftentimes whenever I see people grow in their maturity or in their faith or move or change churches, is it can be easy to see potentially false teachers in where you have been, but whenever you're in something new, sometimes it's difficult during that honeymoon period to see the difficulties and the problems. Now, we can obviously port this over very easily into relationships where during that honeymoon period, for many people, they have difficulty seeing that their spouse has any problems, anything bad or wrong with them. But the more that you live with them, the more you see the problems that are there. Peter's kind of saying the same thing here, that whenever you are thinking about the past, it may be very easy for you to understand that there were some things that were falsely taught there and people who led you astray, intentionally or unintentionally, and hopefully not intentionally. But that happens even in religion. But he's saying don't get into this kind of false sense of security that your current church, your current theological structure, your current faith expression, Christianity, whatever that may be, is without false teachers. There are false teachers in every discipline. There are false teachers in every faith, right? We should kind of know this, but it's easy for us to see it in other places, but it can be very difficult for us to see it in the person or in the context in which we love. And Peter says, they're there. They're very clever with the destructive things that they teach and deny. And in this way, you should pay attention because they're going to bring destruction upon themselves. Sadly, many are going to follow their evil teaching and their shameful immorality. And because of these teachers, the way of truth is going to be slandered. Because of people who teach falsely about Jesus and about God, it is going to bring an effect onto the greater good. And it's also going to bring discredit and problems and slander into truth itself. In their greed, these people will make up clever lies to get a hold of your money, but God condemned them long ago, and their destruction will not be delayed. Now, I want to talk about this for just a moment because my concern is that most of the time we get what is false wrong. So oftentimes, I think that we fall into the trap of thinking that we can easily identify false teachers and root them out. But I don't think that that's what happens, and I don't think that that's what's in view here. The way that false teachers become false teachers, the way that false teachers become, as it said, they use the greed, they amass money and wealth, and people will follow them is because they're very good at what they do, if it's intentional. And if it's unintentional, they're also still very good at believing themselves the lie that they have told themselves. But again, I think that the difficulty is so often whenever I hear people calling other folks false teachers, it kind of makes me bristle a little bit because my concern is that it's the people oftentimes who you think are the false teachers who are really from God and the people who you think are telling you the truth who aren't. Why do I say that? Well, I say that for many reasons, but one of the primary reasons that I say that is because this is what we see in Scripture. What we see in Scripture is that many times the prophets and the teachers and the priests who had a message from God were the ones who the people rejected because they thought that that message could not, would not, should not be from God. Let that sink in. Because you, and I know you're great, are probably not as able to identify what is from God and what isn't from God as many of the people who are listed in the biblical text as being dissuaded, persuaded by false teachers. It can be very, very difficult. And yet we think that our attenuator is excellent. And I got to say, I have concern, even in myself many times, that the folks who I think are from Christ and teaching the right thing, I've been wrong. And the people who I thought were false teachers, many times turn out historically to be the ones who had the message from God. And so I think we have to be careful, we have to be concerned, and we have to be cautious. You see, the challenge is especially great because false teachers are really deceptive. And I get that goes without saying, but they mix enough truth with error so that well-meaning but uninformed Christians will be taken in by them. You say, well, so many people go to my church, so many people follow this false teacher. I follow them, and I understand this is us. There are other people who agree with us. The Bible agrees with us. We are not the false teacher following the false doctrine. And I've got to say, maybe you are. Maybe that person is. Because they are very difficult to identify. If you look at some television evangelist or you look at some preacher who is in your theological stream that you swim in, and you say, no, it can't be that person, you're kidding yourself. So what do we do with this? I think what we do with this is we have to ask the question, could we be wrong? Could we be the ones who are believing false doctrine? Could I be the one who has completely and utterly misunderstood what the Bible said because I am telling it what I want it to say and making it say that rather than hearing what it's actually trying to teach? And if you think you can't do that, then you have done it and you are the one who is continuing to do it. If you think you can't make a mistake or can't understand, or that everything that you believe or most of what you believe is right and is perfect and is good and is not false, you're the problem. And if you think that those people who you idolize, who you read, who you follow, who you listen to, who believe exactly like you do, can't be wrong, can't be false, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? They may well be the problem. You got to ask the question. You have got to always assume that you could be wrong and that they could be wrong, and walk and think and operate under that idea. Be aware. Be on guard. Pay attention. And what you may think is heresy may be God's truth, and what you think is God's truth may be heresy. Until next time, tomorrow, the final study and Thanksgiving. Happy reading. And I guess I'll tell you early, happy eating.